So the cabbage is going to get somewhat tall, but it doesn't really matter because this lettuce and the kohlrabi will be okay from being spaced correctly away from it. And then the beets are going to stay pretty low, so this lettuce will also be able to come to maturity as well. And then we still have all these other open spaces that then I decided to do some microgreens here, some radish, some scallions here, because scallions are super easy. They don't need a lot of sunlight. And then I did some mesclun mix here that can mature and actually have pretty much full southern light. I wouldn't be able to put much else in here. Like I wouldn't be able to put another Napa I wouldn't want to put another Napa cabbage like right here, or especially not a broccoli right here, because it is going to cast a big shadow when it gets big. So I just want to like go through my train of thought to planting what I could where I did. And yeah, you obviously don't have to plant exactly this, but you know the mentality behind it now. Okay, we did it. We covered, nice, 1050. I'm a good teacher. All right, good timing. Okay, all right, fundamentals. We have time to do that, which is great. I love talking about fundamentals because it doesn't matter if you absorb every single bit of the monologue that I just threw at you. It didn't matter if you mastered it and you're a black belt at interplanting and all that. If your soil or your irrigation or your pests or whatever are out of control, you're not going to have a productive garden. So I do feel the need to go over some fundamentals really quickly. So I said I would do it. Some characteristics of picking healthy, strong transplants. I've seen so many times nurseries selling transplants that are just way past their prime. They like you see. I've seen turnips that are literally harvestable, ready to be harvested, that they are selling in a container. I've seen broccoli that are already flowering in the pot. You know, these things, cauliflower already, you know, going to seed. It's sad, but just few simple rules, 3 things. Fully green leaves. Green leaves means that they're not too stressed, they've had enough nitrogen, and they are continually growing. White, lightly circling roots. So you can see here, this is kind of what you're going to be looking for. This is a broccoli that I grew at my home. I like to grow my own starts when I can. I always don't. Sometimes I procrastinate, but when I can, I try to grow all my starts. It's so much cheaper. We also did a class on growing transplants if you want to check that out. But yeah, lightly circling white roots is pretty important, and no fruit. Don't try not to buy transplants that have fruit or flowers or seed unless you're buying like an annual flowering plant. So yeah, another couple of examples of just really good looking transplants. This is what you're looking for: full leaves, lightly circling roots, and they're gonna hit the ground running, literally. So you're gonna be much happier. The best amendment for your soil to use is finished compost. That is, I guarantee it. You know, so our compost here can be a bit salty, and that's something that you can definitely work through by flushing your soils. But finished compost, really good, earthy smelling finished compost, like earthworm castings, or it doesn't smell like earth, but bokashi, it smells more like kimchi. That's what I'm pouring into a bed here. And it's just food waste is all it is. And I highly encourage it. We've had a lot of success. I'm doing soil tests right now on some beds to actually see exactly what our nutrients are looking like. But that first bed I showed you guys, the one that had the little open space, that bed was fully amended with bokashi. It was full. It didn't have anything else added to it. I literally buried 2 5-gallon buckets of bokashi in there, and everything just took off. So definitely, you know, look into that if you guys are interested. We sell bokashi buckets and make our own inoculant in-house. So it makes it sound like we're brewers or something when I say we make it in-house. Okay. We have also, you got to watch out for that unfinished compost that has too much carbon. So That excess carbon can cause a nitrogen depletion. This is something you need to watch out for if you do buy compost in bulk. If you see all these little sticks and fragments, it's a little bit too woody and not finished. The stuff on the right smells nice and earthy. It usually is just dark. You know it when you see it. It just feels very, very good, that compost. You can usually, for the most part, you can usually tell a finished compost from an unfinished compost. Solution, if you do have to use this unfinished compost, which sometimes is, the curse of living in the desert, add plenty of nitrogen to your soil whenever you do, because it will pull that nitrogen. This is a rough estimate of what you could add cottonseed meal to raised beds or in-ground beds. And that's just cottonseed meal is just a good source of nitrogen. It is a bit salty, I've learned, cottonseed meal. It can be a bit salty if you add it continually. So maybe switch it up from just all you're looking for is that first number in the bag to be big, a high nitrogen source. And do soil tests. Honestly, I didn't put this in here, but a soil test is just worth its weight in gold. Once a year, $75. I would be lost without doing soil tests, especially here in the desert. Soil can vary so much from site to site. And use poor compost as a mulch. I highly encourage that. That's great to do. It'll slowly break down over time and not have a big nitrogen pull on the soil. Definitely do that. Moisture. So when it comes to water here, holy moly, I've learned a lot this year. So most of us are using potting soils, which do dry out quicker. And I do this little squeeze test. So I dig down to the edge of the plant's root zone, and then I'll grab a handful of soil, and then I will squeeze it and release. And then how you can tell what you've got is if it doesn't make a ball, it's too dry, like on the left here. And if you have water drops coming out, it's probably too wet, which is pretty rare. You don't see that too much in potting soils. They usually drain really well. And if it holds a ball, like in the right, it is perfect. Deep and infrequent watering is extremely important here as well. If you're not constantly, watering deeply, you're doing those quick, shallow waterings, you will have what we saw earlier in that wood bed where the guy just had universal stunted growth. It was just salts, a lot of salt buildup, and the moisture and the roots, they don't want to. Or not the moisture, sorry. The roots, the plants, they just don't want that salt. Our water is salty. If you are constantly just watering shallowly, it's going to evaporate and eventually form a really gnarly layer of salt. So deep and infrequent, that's what you want to focus on. Sue, here's your bed. Thank you for the great picture. This is a success picture. This is what you guys want to thrive for. Here is covering that soil, really doing your best to just constantly plant. It's okay if stuff fails and dies, just go for it. Just plant something else, And this is one of the gardens I managed up in California. You can see hardly any open soil to the bottom right here, in case you can see that. You will see a tarp that's over some soil. It is because I was transitioning into summer here, and I wanted to use that bed for tomatoes, and I didn't want to plant anything immediately, so I wanted to warm that soil up with a UV-resistant black tarp and keep the soil covered still. I wanted to block those weeds from growing, so I covered that soil and then left the leaf lettuces growing on the left. And on the right here, you can see rows of corn, chard, and if you have a really good screen and eyes, you can see mesclun mix interplanted in these chard plants. And then, yeah, it's just the whole goal of this garden was just to make as much out of every square foot as possible. And that's the whole purpose of this class.